In the dusty heat of an Andalusian afternoon, a young woman steps out of a cigarette factory, and every head on the street turns to follow her. Her name is Carmen. She is a Romani woman, a shawl over her shoulder, an acacia flower between her lips, and a freedom in her step that answers to no one and belongs to no one. A soldier named Don José takes one look at her and will never return to the life he had before. This short novel is also the source of an opera whose music has echoed around the world for nearly 2 centuries. Most people who know Carmen today as an opera heroine have never met the author who first created her on the page. Let's get into it. First, the author. Prosper Mérimée was born in Paris in 1803. He was not only a writer, but also a historian and an archaeologist, and for nearly 3 decades, he served as France's Inspector of Historical Monuments, a role in which his signature still stands behind the survival of many of the country's medieval castles and churches. That career took him traveling across Europe, studying old stone buildings, folk tales, and local traditions, and that curious, wandering identity feeds directly into the vivid portrait of Andalusia found in Carmen. In 1844, after a long campaign of quiet lobbying, he was elected to the Académie Française, a sign of how firmly he had settled into the literary establishment of his day. But the story of Carmen was born less from his literary career than from a single trip. In 1830, Mérimée traveled to Spain, where he met the Countess of Montijo. The Countess told him a true story of jealousy and murder, and years later, Mérimée reworked that anecdote through his own imagination into a novella built around a fictional Romani woman. The Countess's young daughter, who was present that day, was named Eugenie, and she would go on to marry the French Emperor Napoleon III. Mérimée became one of the Empress's closest friends, holding a senator's seat and a lasting friendship that reached all the way into the imperial court. This short novel, in other words, was born at the crossing point of a provincial conversation, an archaeologist's curiosity, and an unlikely friendship. Carmen first appeared serialized in a periodical in 1845, then as a complete book in 1846. It was not Mérimée's only celebrated work. Short novels like Matteo Falconi, Tamango, and Columba tell similarly harsh, passionate stories set in different corners of the world. But none of them reached as wide an audience as Carmen, and none of them was ever immortalized by being transformed into an opera. So what actually happens in the book? The novel is told through an unusual frame. The narrator is a French scholar traveling through Spain in search of historical ruins, a character not unlike Mérimée himself. While journeying through the Andalusian countryside, this narrator crosses paths with a wary, mysterious man. He shares a meal with him, spends the night under the same roof, and later learns the man is a wanted outlaw, yet chooses to stay silent rather than betray him. When he reaches Córdoba, the narrator meets Carmen on his own. She offers to read his fortune and, with a mysterious charm, invites him to an evening meeting. He accepts, not yet knowing how deeply the mysterious man he had just helped is entangled in Carmen's world. When the narrator later returns to Córdoba, he learns that this man, Don José, has been arrested and now awaits execution. He visits him in his cell, and Don José tells him his own story from the beginning. Once an ordinary, disciplined soldier, Don José meets Carmen one day while standing guard outside the cigarette factory. Carmen is a woman no one can possess, a woman who refuses to compromise her freedom for anyone. Arrested after a brawl, she is led away by Don José, and he, falling under the spell of her charm and her games, lets her slip away. That single decision turns Don José's life upside down. He's expelled from the army and drawn into Carmen's world, a dangerous circle of smugglers and thieves who raid caravans and slip goods across borders in secret. Among them, Don José is a man far removed from the disciplined soldier he once was, yet his passion for Carmen keeps him bound to this perilous life. Loving Carmen becomes, for Don José, first a passion and then an obsession, while Carmen herself refuses to belong permanently to any man, even one who loves her as fiercely as he does. As the novel progresses, Don José's jealousy sharpens further with the arrival of a handsome bullfighter named Lucas in Carmen's life. The novel's ending is one of the most widely known tragic endings in world literature, and thanks to the opera, it is now familiar to nearly everyone, so there is little point in concealing it here. Don José's passion ends in ruin for them both. But every detail of the road that leads there, the way Mérimée builds this emotional collapse step by step, I will leave to the pages of the book itself. So why does this novel still endure? Because Carmen gave world literature one of its most enduring archetypes, a woman who belongs to no one and refuses to surrender to any man's desire. Characters this bold and this independent are rare in 19th century French fiction. Carmen is neither a victim nor a simple villain. She lives entirely by her own rules and accepts whatever price that demands. And that complexity keeps her fascinating and debated even 2 centuries later. The novel also paints Spain, Romani culture, and the sun-baked, dusty streets of Andalusia, an exotic geography for French readers of the time, with the curiosity of a scholar and the feeling of a novelist. Mérimée's spare, almost report-like coolness of style makes the passion within the story land even harder. He narrates from an observer's distance, without ever giving in to sentimentality, and that contrast is part of what gives the novel its lasting power. The frame structure itself, hearing a story secondhand, even as a confession delivered inside a prison cell, gives readers both distance and a strange intimacy. Like the narrator, you are left to decide for yourself how much of what this man tells you to believe. Now, a look behind the curtain. The work that introduced Carmen to audiences around the world today is not really the novella, but the opera of the same name by the composer Georges Bizet. The opera premiered in Paris in March of 1875 at the Opéra Comique, with a libretto by Henri Meilhac and Ludovic Halevi. The audience's reaction on opening night was mixed. While the first act was well received, a growing coldness settled over the house as the later acts unfolded, and the reviews the following day targeted the work's morally unsettling realism. Bizet never lived to see how great a success his opera would become, because just 3 months after the premiere, at 36 years old, he died of heart disease. The opera departs from Mérimée's novella in several ways. The librettists added new characters, not nearly as prominent in the book, and reshaped the plot for the stage. The gentle, devoted village girl Micaela, who tries to win Don José back in the opera, is a character barely present in the novella, largely invented by the librettists for the stage. The bullfighter who is named Escamillo in the opera appears in the book simply as Lucas. One more note. The English text this script is based on is itself a translation of Mérimée's original French novella, so every sentence you hear has already traveled from one language into another, and now into a third. We have covered Carmen, but hearing it in Don José's own voice, you will feel every step of this passion, and every regret far more deeply. If you would like to listen to the complete book as an audiobook, you will find the link in the description. Subscribe for more books like this one. Until the next one, keep in mind that woman stepping out of the cigarette factory, the road she led him down, and the melody of that opera still playing somewhere in the back of your mind.